Thank you for coming.
Good.
How are you? One of you want to speak first?
Seriously, I was looking at that wall and I was like, something is supposed to be wall. Something needs to happen. Thank you, Henry. Like, don't be a kid. Sit in the back of the room. Nice job. You ready, John?
We'll start in just about 30 seconds.
Just so you know, he's much taller than me. You good now? Hey, thank you everyone for being here. I really appreciate it, so we can get the information about our referendum out. We'll have a couple of speakers. First will be Superintendent John Magus, then Danette Sebo. She is Principal on Special Assignment in charge of Career Technical Education, and then Peter Graves, who is the Educational Technology and Innovation Coordinator. And I'm very proud I got that right. So first up, John.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. We really appreciate everyone coming, and I really appreciate our team for helping us get well prepared for this. And really, Duluth Public Schools and the community, we're about to embark on our next journey in making a huge decision for our future, a decision that will allow us to potentially have additional resources that our children desperately need. And I'll talk about that in greater detail. But today, we're here to share a little bit more about our Future Forward, our next step in Future Forward 709. And where we're going for the referendum on May 14th. So as you know, over the past couple years, we've worked really hard on putting together a strong strategic plan. And that strategic plan has focused on 3 key areas. And it was based on community input. It was based on input from families, from input from teachers and other staff members, as well as our leadership, but also community members. And that plan outlines 3 basic strategic directions. The 3 strategic directions are supporting every student. That's something we believe in every day. How do we make sure every student has what they need? Advancing equity, making sure that outcomes are the same, that people have the same type of opportunities and have what they need to move forward. And then improving systems. How do we think about what we do as a school system, and how do we make sure we support our schools and our students and our families and our staff as well as possible? So to really achieve those 3 directions and to move forward with those 3 directions, we really need to focus on what we need for resources. And we recognize that we're coming to the community yet again, and very close after a referendum that narrowly failed with the second question in November. Our first question passed quite well, but that second question, with 33,000 voters, it failed by less than 300 votes. And so we've revised what we're asking for. We've revised what we're looking for. We have a stronger focus on career and technical education, and there's also more focus on what we're doing with safety for our students within this referendum. So really, that's where we come forward. And to focus on the 3 main goals of that referendum, there are 3 main goals. And the first one is to provide our schools and our students with the digital tools that they need to enhance student learning. Really thinking about what are we doing for digital curriculum? What are we doing for the devices we need? All of those things, sound field systems. When you go into a classroom, auditorium and you can broadcast the sound. That is incredibly important. You think about our smart board, our other devices that we have. Those are important tools that we need on a regular basis. The second goal is really making sure that we're keeping our students, staff, and families safe. And that comes in when we think about data. I know you know a lot about cybersecurity, and we hear constantly, and sometimes we even get email reminders as individuals about data security. We have seen throughout the state and throughout the country where we've had major data breaches where massive amounts of data are lost. And it's important for us to make sure that we have the systems we need to keep the data for your students safe. And then third is to make sure that we have a well-maintained digital infrastructure. We need to make sure our phone systems, our internet, all of the systems we have are as strong as possible. And really, I know you're thinking about all the state funding that we've had in the past couple of years. The state funds about 75% of what we do as schools. The other 25% comes from local support. And so that's where it's important for us to engage with the community and talk with the community and see what they want and what they need. And I've had a lot of community conversations. I've been to the West Duluth Business Group. I've been to the Duluth Chamber of Commerce. I've talked with parents. I've talked with community leaders, and they want to make sure we have strong schools. Strong schools means that Duluth is development ready. When we think about other companies that want to come to Duluth, they want to make sure that the students are well educated and ready to go. We want to make sure that our workers are well prepared so that they can fill the positions that are needed within Duluth. And then you also think about all of our healthcare and other systems that we have. We want to make sure that when we go to the doctor and when we have people caring for us, that they can do so with the greatest skills necessary. And so making sure that we have well-prepared students is incredibly important. So, again, we'll be talking more about some of the details, but I have two leaders that will be sharing more. First, we have Danette Sebo, who is principal on special assignment, working with our career and technical education, thinking about how those positions are very important and what are we doing to prepare our students for the careers, not just of today, but of the future. And then we have Peter Graves, who will be sharing more about district technology plans. So without further ado, Danette Sebo.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I have been the principal at Duluth East High School for the past 7 years and took on this role. Career and technical education is one of my primary duties. There are many others. Career and technical education, for those of you who don't know, are hands-on courses that are for all students. They are by design courses that give students experience in college and career exploration. They can acquire certifications in those program areas. We have students graduating as CNAs. We have students who have been working in an ASE certified auto shop for up to 3 years by the time they graduate high school. We have a construction program. I could list them all, but we'll get you a list later. These programs, by design, are very equipment heavy. They are very expensive courses to run, and we are required to be up to industry standard. Each program has an advisory board that's made up of community and business partners who are currently working in industry, and they advise us on what our courses should be, what they need their future employees to have, what equipment they're working with right now, and a good chunk of our equipment is considerably older than what is being used in industry. We have instructors who could tell you that a lot of the equipment they use is older than they are. Some equipment is outdated and broken, needs repairs. It is a constant battle to keep those courses also supplied. Supplies are expensive. Wood is incredibly expensive. Metal that we're using, 3D printing filament is expensive. They are technology heavy. Our students are coming out of our engineering programs with many certifications in SolidWorks, which requires updated license every year and updated computers. Our graphic arts program uses Adobe Photoshop. Those computers are also incredibly important to us, and we have to maintain an annual subscription to Adobe. Those are just a couple of examples. In order to grow, at this point, we know that we want to grow our career and technical education programs, and some of the new courses that we can share with you later have to be equipment dry. They have to be less expensive to start as a new program. Introduction to law enforcement is an example. Forensic science is an example. We're restricted to adding more classroom-based and less shop or lab-based classes. So in order to grow, in order to add programs at our new ALC facilities that are being built, we really need considerable funding for equipment. There is limited state grants available. We are part of the Lake Superior Consortium, which is a really robust group of schools in northeastern Minnesota that work together, and we administer and manage a grant. That grant really is designed to support teachers who need professional development, to get students out on field trip and experience opportunities, and to start new programs, new innovative things. It is not designed to sustain programs. The school districts have to do that, and we are in dire need. These programs are incredibly popular. They're typically full. We are using those rooms every hour of every day right now and looking forward to adding some new things. But we really do have a lot of technology and equipment and software expense, and then supply expense. You'd be surprised how expensive it is to run a culinary program at both high schools. With that, I will turn it over to Peter Graves. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Good afternoon. My name is Peter Graves. I'm a former math teacher in the district. I've been in the district for 35 years. I started at Morgan Park Junior High School. I'm currently now the Educational Technology Coordinator for the district. What I'm going to present today is a little bit of an idea of how we use technology in our classrooms. I'll give you the perspective of a teacher who's been here for 35 years. When I started teaching, the technology I had available to me were a blackboard or an overhead projector, a student textbook, a lesson plan book, a red grade book, and a phone. And that was my technology. And at the time that technology worked, we put lessons in front of students that they took in, and that was all good to go. Later, as we go through the years, we introduced network systems and computers that were connected to those networks, and it gave me, the word I'm going to use is empowered. It empowered me as a teacher to use my understanding of mathematics and put it in a digital format. I was able to collaborate with fellow teachers, not just inside my building, but outside my buildings, based on a network. I was able to gather information in my classroom that was important to me to present in front of my students. I was able to prepare myself in a better way because I was using a new technology. Probably about 15 years ago, we introduced digital whiteboards, smart boards, into our district, and that empowered me as a teacher to take the information that I collected and present it to my students in a more interactive manner. So I was able to be one of the trainers in the district that helped students or helped teachers prepare their lessons, and what I found out is that it empowered our teachers to be creative. I had biology teachers that were asking me can we come up with a way on a smart board to present how the different systems in the human body are connected? And we did that. We layered a presentation together, and they were able to physically move different pieces of the human body to show how they were connected. It made a big advance in the way that they taught. If I brought it to the other end, I was able to help kindergarten teachers on their smart board. How could they present their materials to get them from the carpet up to the smart board to be interactive in their lessons? And we did that. We lowered the smart board down to the appropriate height. The kindergarten came up, talked about the letter that they were interested in, slid it over themselves, and they came up with a conclusion. They had a very visual way of doing that. And so technology has been in our district, and every time we get a technology advance, we take advantage of it. We use it as a resource. And what it does is it empowers me as the teacher. So we'll fast forward it to current day use of technology. We were in the process of transitioning from physical textbooks to computers for our students. We were looking at getting carts of Chromebooks available to different students and letting them use it, letting students use the Chromebooks as a device to gather information and share information. When COVID hit, we've had to fast forward it in a positive positive, productive, energetic way as we could to get that technology to our students. And what we found out is that empowered our students. If you put a device in their hands that they're able to push play and pause and replay, if you put a device in their hands where they can control the search and they can look for different things, if you put a piece of technology in their hands where the teacher gives the direction, they start the process, they give them a direction, they put some guardrails up there to keep them focused on a point, and then they have a conversation at the end where they can talk about what they explored, the student can do the rest. And that's what our current model is in education. So having Chromebooks in a student's hand, or having a technology in a student's hand that is gives them empowers them to be the learner is something that we see as very important. And that's where we're at this stage. It does have a cost to it. It requires an investment, but it does have what we think is the best tool for our educational system. So there's a lot of support that goes with it. Superintendent Megas talked about some of that support and infrastructure that's needed. A monitoring system for cybersecurity is needed. We need to have humans in places where we have to monitor and kind of somewhat observe what's going on in our system. That's important as well. And we have to teach our teachers how to use that system so that they can focus their lessons in the subject matters that they have. So technology comes up in different stages, and we get to figure out where it gets used, but I like to think of it as an empowerment, and that's kind of where we're at. I'll give it back.
Thank you.
Okay. And we'll take questions, so any of these three can answer questions. We also have our finance executive director here if need be. So,
Thank you. And just before we go into any questions you might have, I also want to say thanks to our school board, who is well represented here. Our school board had to make the really difficult decision of should we move forward with the referendum and what should the questions be. And so we have 5 of our school board members here, Chair Lofold, Member Loeffler-Kemp, Member Sadowski, Member Williams, and Member Banks. Of our 7-member board, it was unanimous that we wanted to move forward with this. We know that we're coming back to the public again. We know that we're coming again with some questions, but it's imperative that we know our financial direction. Our next budget begins on July 1st, and for us to really have that ability to forecast where we'll be, it's important for us to move forward. We also believe it's important to hear the voice of the people, and that's why we wanted to have a special election. The special election is on May 14th, as I mentioned, because if we have it later in the year, we're worried that with the significant politics of the presidential election and other things, that this question will be lost amongst those other conversations. So we want to make sure that we're having conversation with Duluth, we're engaging Duluth. It's my job to make sure you're as well informed as possible. And along those lines, we have our handout that we've shared, which has a lot of really useful information. We have the 3 goals that I talked about that goes into greater detail. And then in this section where it says our plan, it breaks down in percentages where is the money being spent of the money we talk about. And then there's tax impact and voting information on this sheet. All of that information is really also available on our futureforward709.org website, so you can find a lot of information there. But as we move to close, I just want to share a little bit about the tax impact as well. There is a tax impact. There is a cost to this. We need to make sure that we're investing in our kids' future. The tax impact is very similar to last time. The valuation of homes has gone up, though. The new value for the average home is $315,000, and for that average home, there would be a tax increase very similar to last time of $10.87 per home. We thought about, should we go much cheaper? Should we try and reduce the amount? But we were very concerned that when we know what the needs are, we asked for what we needed last time, and this is really about making sure that we share the information, that you really understand what we need, and then hopefully we will have some positive information moving forward. But again, it comes down to you making that decision as individual voters, and we want to make sure that you're ready to make that decision. So Danette and Peter, if you want to come up, if there are any individual questions, we're ready to answer.
John, obviously you want this to pass. What if we get to that point where the voters say no again? What happens? How do we move forward, and how do we implement some of these without the money?
Sure, and that's a really good question. A lot of times with referenda, we want to talk about what the positives of what happens when it passes. So there are many things that we talk about. We talk about the devices, we talk about the safety, we talk about the infrastructure that we need. But there are ramifications if it doesn't pass. It will result in us not being able to replace the district devices we have. We'll not be able to maintain our infrastructures the way that we'd like to, and cybersecurity will be more at risk than it has been. We also will have significant budget impacts, and this is something that we went into before, but those budget impacts will result in changes in programming and probably changes in staffing as well. And so we need to know and be very clear that there are ramifications about this. We don't want to paint any doomsday picture of what will happen, but there are significant impacts on us financially. And I think one thing I'm really proud about Duluth is we support our schools, and I'm also proud that we have turned the financial picture of the district around over the course of the past few years. We were very close to statutory operating debt 4 years ago, and we have built a solid budget that has allowed us to continue in positive ways. And if you think about, that's not just our opinion. We've had major organizations like Moody's, which is one of the largest organizations that rates organizations on their financial status. We received a double bump in our Moody's rating, so that says that you can trust the finances of Duluth Public Schools, and they decided to keep us there at that same high rating this year, which was, considering where most schools are with declining enrollment and things like that, the public believes in Duluth Public Schools finance. Other questions?
John, I know some other referendums sometimes require like a really good PR campaign. Does the district
Yes.
have plans to really get this message out here so it'll be an odd time to vote?
Sure. So we work both internally, and we do have a little bit of external input on some of the strategy that we use for referenda. Most districts do use other entities sometimes for that, and so really working together. We have a tight team of people. Actually, most of them are sitting there or standing here. But Adele Wellens, our communications officer, has done much to prepare as well. It's really, I think sometimes people might think that we're out campaigning for the referendum, but that's not what we're doing. We're trying to make sure that we share as much information as possible so that people are as well informed when they go into the voter booth. So it's not up to me to say vote yes or vote no. I'm sure you might guess how I might vote, but it's up to us to really help make sure the public is well informed so that they know what is the financial tax impact, and they also know what is the positive and negative impact on the school district.
Can you talk about the reasoning behind the kind of quick turnaround, asking again 6 months after
Sure.
the sale? Was it a slim margin or?
Yes, part of it was the slim margin. We feel like with 2 questions on the last election, it was much more complicated. We were explaining refinancing of debt, where that first question was very complicated, and it was a little less expensive. And so we spent a lot of time on that first question, and we felt like we didn't necessarily give the voters as much information as we could on the second question. And that second question is still very, very important to us. We also listened to the community and saying that they wanted to know, what are you doing for the students to prepare them for the future, not just with devices, not just with technology. And that's where we shifted a lot of our focus, and we put money into replacement cycles and thinking about our career and technical education. Think about the ports. Think about Cirrus. Think about Essentia and St. Luke's. Think about those major employers, and then we have hundreds and hundreds of smaller employers that need skilled workers. And so when we think about those skilled worker needs, we want to make sure that they're prepared with career and technical education skills too. And again, as I mentioned before, our next budget goes into effect starting July 1st. And if we don't know where we'll be until next November for the years down the road, it makes it really hard for us to be thoughtful in the way that we plan to responsibly share the resources that the community has given us. Other questions?
I'm sure you did some research after the last referendum failed. What have you heard? Why didn't that other 300 people vote? Why? What was the major? What didn't they understand?
Sure. I think there are a number of things that we heard. I think sometimes we heard the first question was cheap, and so they went for the less expensive answer. We also heard sometimes that people felt like just putting devices in kids' hands and letting them do what they wanted, that wasn't what they wanted. But that's not our intention. You heard from Mr. Graves and others that really this is, first of all, it's not just about devices. It's about cybersecurity. It's about making sure that we are teaching responsible use of technology. I think we all know technology isn't going away, but how do we make sure we're preparing our students as digital citizens of the future, and that they're prepared for the jobs that we don't even know will exist, right? So that is really important. So making sure that we answered that question about it's not just devices for kids to play around with, that was important. And then I think that there is even though Duluth is very supportive of schools, I think that there's also a need to be financially cautious here, and people are wanting to be careful. We know that there are a lot of people on fixed incomes. There are a lot of people with the price of housing where it's challenging to maintain a household budget. And so making sure that people really understand what is it that you're going to be doing with this money, Duluth Public Schools, and making sure that we clearly communicate that, it's ultra important, especially with this. And so it's our responsibility, and primarily my responsibility, to make sure that we're out there as much as possible. You'll see me at many community events and doing sharing information, as will be my team members. So starting this week, even thinking about our parent-teacher conferences and open houses, we'll have presence at many of those events. Question over here?
So going back to the small margin of 300 votes, what would be the city's message to voters without children in school, and how they can potentially have an impact on the upcoming election? Sure.
And I hear 300 votes, but it was not quite 300. It was 291 votes, and I talked to somebody whose ballot was returned to them. So it was even closer than that had we done it. But I would say again, making sure that we are getting the clarity of message out there, that people understand what does it mean if this passes, and what does it mean if it doesn't pass. And again, we focus on the many positives of what happens if it does pass, but there are some pretty significant negative consequences if it doesn't. And so we need people to understand that it means that our 75-year-old CTE equipment won't be replaced. It means that our students will be working with equipment that is less than what some other people can offer in other areas. And also when we think about our devices, when I started here, we were in the midst of the pandemic, and while other school districts were able to go to virtual learning and hybrid learning, we were not able to because we didn't have one-to-one devices, partly because the referendum of 2018 hadn't passed. And because we didn't have those devices, we were actually delivering packets by school bus to our students. So driving around town, delivering packets by school bus. Well, that is a huge, heartfelt, amazing thing that people did to step up and deliver education, quite literally. We need to make sure that we're tapping into the devices of today so that we can deliver what kids need for today and into the future. Other questions?
If CTE programs are getting more money with this app, how did priorities shift? Like, how did the plan change from the last app?
Sure. So we knew that there was a significant CTE need, and Danette, if you want to talk about how we identified some of the things that we might focus on for the CTE part, that would be helpful. But in general, we decided that when you're always assessing the full universal needs of the district, and sometimes there are certain things that are rising to our attention that need focus, and technology is still very important. That's why it's still a very significant portion. Most of the referendum is for the areas of technology that we mentioned and that are broken down here. But we also realized, again, that if we're going to have a robust CTE program, we need to make sure we're looking at what type of equipment needs we have and how we're assessing that replacement cycle. Because again, those pieces of equipment are really expensive. Danette, you want to share just a little bit about how we did that?
Certainly. First, I will add that February is National Career and Technical Education Month. On the 29th, we'll have a CTE student and staff showcase here before the board meeting. Please come. The students love to show what they've been up to, what they're working on, what kind of careers they've been introduced to. So help us celebrate CTE Month. I would also add that I would love to take any of you on a tour of facilities, not just in our high schools, but in our middle school programs too. So please don't hesitate to reach out, help us celebrate CTE Month, and potentially share information about what career and technical education is, so that when people are asked to vote, they really have an understanding. So related to the question about the finances, some of the needs, the most expensive needs for career and tech ed are technology related. I mentioned those annual subscriptions to things. Virtually everything we do has technology attached. The system that runs the new CNC machine is, I could never do it. We have instructors from LSC coming down to help with that. Our business community and our business industry and post-secondary partners are incredibly supportive of these programs, and they help identify what those needs are with us. And so when we talked about what this could mean, this 10% of this referendum to career and technical education, it protects the funding we need every year, so those annual subscriptions. It will help protect the cycle of needing to replace technology. We have to replace those computers long before a teacher computer needs to be replaced, or it won't run with the software, it won't run the machine. We identified some of those annual needs. We identified some needs in supply budgets where we're falling short, and our programs are growing, and therefore our supply needs have to grow. And then we also identified every year, actually, we identify failing or failed equipment, and we create a priority list, and we fix as much as we can with limited resources. So we have a lengthy list of things that need to be repaired or replaced in the not too distant future, things that are on their last legs and limping along. But then we also identified areas for growth. Our current programs and instructors have a lot of ideas for changing, reshaping, adding, so that we really are feeding into what our local business and industry needs. And we are giving our students college-bound, career-bound, military-bound, I don't know what I'm doing yet students, really solid experiences that will help them kind of figure that out and potentially launch them down a really great pathway. So again, career and tech ed is for all of our students. I don't have numbers in front of me, but I could tell you how many students in both Denfeld and East take career and tech ed in one way or another is huge. And I do know that they're a little harder to explain or understand than traditional courses that we all took in high school. And so, again, if you would ever like to go meet those students and teachers, see the spaces they're in, the greenhouse at East, the culinary kitchens, the shops, our massive auto shop, we would love to show it off to you. So, thank you.
Thank you, Danette. And I think that what you stated really echoes what I hear, too. Whether I'm talking with Dr. Herman, the CEO from Essentia, or whether I'm talking to my fellow board members as part of the Duluth Area Chamber of Commerce, thinking about what are the needs out there that you've articulated really well. We want to make sure that we have students that are prepared not just for today, but are prepared for tomorrow. So that is really why we're moving forward with our Future Forward 709 referendum again, and that's why we have such a sense of urgency around it. And I would also say that when I reflect back, what can I do better? I want to make sure that I'm doing the best job possible in communicating the what, the why, and the how of this referendum as we move forward. Other questions? All right. Well, we can be available for individual interviews or anything like that that is needed. And I just want to say thank you. Appreciate everybody coming today. And we also appreciate, no matter how you vote, that we want to make sure that everybody is out there on May 14th to place their vote and have their voice heard. Thank you.
I was just texting my aunt because I'm going to send to our